Hey everybody, it's Johnny Flyer, and as you may have noticed, this is not the normal layout at the workbench today. And those of you who are astute enough to notice that there is a airbrush and spray out pot here and some other things going on, probably surmise that today is indeed paint day at the bench. And so today we're going to take kind of the final steps for restoration of this American Flyer 312 that I've been working on for a little while now. And just to kind of recap what's gone on. So this particular engine was pretty darn rusty when we got it. Took it all the way down to base parts, cleaned up as much as we possibly could, got it ready to run, and did some JB Weld on the front end of this one, which you can't see because it's covered by tape. Sorry about that. And did some JB Weld on this side too. I might pull this around so you can take a look at it. And so if I scroll in here just a little bit, so you can kind of see where the JB Weld area was. It didn't cover it quite as well. Oh, there we go. That's good light. So it didn't get quite as flat as I think I would have wanted to, but I was also a little bit nervous about how to go about doing that. But yeah, the paint looks good, and the rivets, which was the big thing I was trying to save, was survived the JB Weld process and that flattening. I got some work to do to try to make that a little better. But for the purposes of an engine that I was going to keep here, and really was more experimenting with how to restore things like this, this worked out pretty well. So from the side, you can see here, it's got new decals on it. So got that beautiful PRR on there and the American Flyer lines. Did a lot of cleanup just to get it in here. One thing it is still missing here that I have neglected to order, and I will, is the rail for the ladder back here. Obviously a common problem for these, that they would bend and break off over time. But clean these little lights in the back here. A goal I have is to either jewel these up, or I will put LEDs in here. I'll kind of figure out how I want to do that. But I think this is going to be my experimental engine. It runs really well, and really just the cosmetics of it is what I'm in here. So you're wondering why I've got this 10 plate a tender right here. Well, I've got some spare tenders, and does anybody else tell you it's a bad idea to run any paint over anything you intend to keep? So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to run a few coats of this. It's a clear, but is a gloss, so it's a Testors clear coat. This is a water-based, which I kind of prefer with airbrush paints, but I'm going to give this one a whirl. I haven't tried it before, which is why I'm also a little bit hesitant to spray it directly onto the engine. But we'll give it a whirl here, and the intent is to leave it with kind of a semi-gloss texture. This is the Rust-Oleum 7777 that I was turned on to a while ago. And as you can see, I've got a brand new set of decals on the side here. I just love the way that pops against that black. Looks really nice. We've got the railings kind of taped off here, and I did so because I wanted to, I intended to paint the entire engine, give it one kind of a quick coat all over the top here, and then of course a protective layer here, because those decals don't exactly wear well, so I want to at least get a coat of paint over the top of that, and try to protect those a little bit so it has a couple more years of wear. But by the time we're done, this thing is going to be a engine that will definitely go on my train table. I think it looks great. It really, really came back together well. If I have any complaints with it at all, it's that some of the linkage that was here was so rusty. Can't see it underneath the tape that's on here, but it was so rusty, I had to take it down to bare metal, and it still shows some of that dark pitting. But I'm reluctant to go much further because I'm worried about weakening linkage. I guess over time, I could probably replace it with brand new linkage. That's probably not as big a deal. But you know, for a locomotive I was trying to restore on the cheap, this engine just turned out fantastic. So I'm gonna break open the airbrush here. I'm gonna do a little test run. I'll take another video, and then we'll get started on a 312. Okay, folks, well, I didn't get a chance to take an interim video because I forgot when I said that when you're dealing with acrylic paints, they have a tendency to dry on the needle of the airbrush. And so it's always best to kind of keep on going rather than taking a stop, because then you got to deal with paint kind of drying up and it starts to splutter a little bit, and that's no fun. So, never underestimate the power of an excellent airbrush, and I tell you, Iwata makes a great one. So if you're in the market, the Iwata Eclipse is a gravity-fed airbrush, and man, it's one of the best things I've ever owned. So you can kind of see, and the reason why I'm tipping it over the light here is you can see what I did here. So this right here is the matte finish. Actually, sorry, that's a satin finish that I was using before. That's the 7. That's not the 777. That was what was on here before. So I painted that just to kind of feel like, just to kind of get a feel for what kind of gloss coat I get, and it came out really, really nicely. It was very even. So I was pretty confident I could get a good even coat on there. So first thing I did was go to the Tender, and I did this side first, and let me try to get the light to rock so you can kind of see it. Nice and even, really came out well. Very, very pleased with that. The other side, so I guess my decal work needs some work. You can kind of see the line here really got accentuated when I started to paint, and I'm not exactly sure why. So I'm not terribly happy with that. The intent was to try to hide those lines a little more. I guess this didn't have the effect. Same thing here. You can kind of see just on this line. It's kind of hard to tip it up, but let me see if I can do both at the same time. You can see that line just to the bottom side of the PRR, the Pacific Railroad, or Pennsylvania Railroad there. So those two lines, I don't know why those showed up the way they did, but they did. But anyway, the coat really looks nice, and so I learned a few lessons in doing that, and got the rest of it kind of just give it a good once over again, just to try to preserve the paint underneath, because I do intend to run this pretty frequently. But I wanted to get it as close to new or newish as I could, and I really like the way this engine came out. I'm very happy with this. So then I moved on to the locomotive, and as you can tell, I've pulled off all the covering paint, and I'll start with the top first. What a beautiful, just kind of it's not quite gloss, it's somewhere between glossy and satin, which is just about right, and I'm really happy with that. And again, gave it a good kind of a coat over our decals. Absolutely nothing going on there, which is great. No lines, and the same results here. Again, yeah, so, and you can just kind of see where that sheen picked up. Now here was the unfortunate part, now that you can kind of see it. So I peeled off the paint, or sorry, the tape, and it peeled off a whole bunch of paint with me. And I had not primed this before. I assumed that it wasn't going to need to, and evidently I do. But I am so far into this thing at this point. I think this is called the Steam Box, I believe. That I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull out the airbrush. I'm going to prime and paint it real fast, and then I'll go back over it with the Testors clear acrylic here, just to finish it off and try to get it to match the rest of the train. It is a different material than the rest of the thing. I don't believe it's die cast. It's sort of a different type of material, and it cleans up differently as well. Same thing happened to this side. So unfortunate side effect of using the tape, and a good lesson learned for the future. But man, this engine just looks, I mean, 130% better. If you remember those first videos of all the rust, and this although the linkage was completely frozen, this thing would not turn, or would barely turn. And now it is it really rockets around the track now. It makes great smoke. So this is definitely one of those engines I'm going to be keeping for a long time, and looking forward to running for a while. So I'm going to do a little bit of repair paint work, folks, and last time you should see this one is as it does its final track checkout run. But I think this is ready to go. So that's all for now. Thanks, folks, for watching. Well, hey, folks, Johnny Flyer, and today I am tuning in from a different location than you might be used to from some of my other videos. Today I am tuning in, and this is why I haven't done a video in a while, for my brand new test bench that I completed over the holidays. So just to kind of walk you through what I've got here. So I have one loop, American Flyer track, and excuse the wire work, I'm not quite done with it, but it is at least functional at this point. So I've taken one loop and then a old switch so I can do some, I can load up the rolling stock off of here. Plus I've got a manual coupler here, and I'm going to do another decoupler over here. And so what I've got in the middle is a HO train set. It's a little bit of Frankenstein. I'm going to get that fixed up too with some Easy Track because I just like that stuff better and it's more consistent. I need to do some wire work, like I mentioned. But the idea, for this test track is I want to be able to test out my American Flyer trains, obviously, and make sure they're functioning and that everything's good and that they can pull. But I also want to be able to let my kids come in and play with trains as well at the same time. And this gives me a chance to do exactly that. So they can come in and play with the HO scale. We've got an inner loop and an outer loop that kind of goes simultaneously, which is pretty cool. And then obviously for the American Flyer trains is the outer loop. And so what we have is not only just an update on the American Flyer 312 that was working so very well and now looks very nice with all the paint work and the decals are all done, but we have a train table on which to test. So that's it for now, folks. I'll give you another video where you'll see the train table as it starts to progress over time. Very proud of this work, and I think it's come together pretty nice. It looks good. So, and this is all with just a bunch of scrap wood and some kind of cheaper parts and some stuff I had on hand. So it cost me next to nothing to make except for just a little bit of time and energy. So you can do this on a budget. So that's it for now, folks. Very pleased with how my 312 was running and very pleased with my new train table. So thanks for tuning in. See you next time.